and then I'm going to ask each and every lady if you were to go ahead on and mute your line so that we can get a clear recording, because what I've been trying to do is make sure that I post this through YouTube so that if you ladies miss a call, you have the ability to go on. Once I get everything set up, it takes me about a couple of days, get it set up on YouTube as a recording so you can listen. And if you don't get a chance to get on YouTube and you want it before then, I can actually give you a recorded line phone number that you can listen through your telephone. But thank you for thank you for joining the Hebrew Ladies call tonight. It is a blessing that you guys have joined us, and I appreciate you for being on the call. So let's get into it. There's a lot of information that I would like to share with you ladies tonight. First, I want to get into sharing the information about what is happening in our world, some really quick news information. I'm not going to go through this. I'm not going to lag through it. I'm going to give you the information as quickly as possible so that we can get on to the word. But I believe that we as watchers of the children of the Most High need to know what's going on around us so that we can be aware of what is happening as our world today that relates to Bible prophecy. And so basically, we have a couple of articles I want to share. One is from the Seeker Network, and I did share this on Facebook with some of our ladies via the Ahayah page, and also through my page. And it was about the companies that are now implanting microchips into their employees. And you're going to see the push for RFID chips over and over again, be it via your passports, via your license, whatever identification information. You're going to start seeing it with your credit cards. They're going to be pushing this because they want to get the B system and get it operating as quick as possible. So there's companies that are actually doing away with your badges now, which actually give you access to inside of the building. Offices may have to access the computer at your office. You may have to access the doors. You may have to access the copier. Anything that has basically that needs a security access code from a device is being replaced by these RFID microchips. One of the companies called Swedish tech company is called Epicenter actually posted this post, and over 400 of his employees are already chipped with this RFID radio frequency identification device or chip right in their hand. They say it's as small as a grain of rice, and they're actually having I would say people that are not registered doctors or nurses, they're actually having these companies perform. Whoever's doing this is not a licensed practitioner. And if they are, you look at the video, you'll see this guy is pretty much, he looks like a tattoo parlor guy, but he's inserting these chips into the employee's hands. And they go out immediately activated and ready to go. You can open office doors, use copy machines and devices with security access. You can even put personal security information inside of this chip. You can program it in, such as your driver's license, your credit cards, anything that's scannable that uses the security feature of scanning it to get information. It can now be embedded in this chip. So, mark of the beast, anyone? I would say so, yes. It is training, and it's trying to get us acclimated into this so that we won't, freak out when it comes. We'll just be lackadaisical and get this particular chip. But we all know that the scripture says that he will cause us to get a mark on our forehead or in our hands, and we know this is the age that we're living in the tribulation period. So this is just be on your guard so that you know what's coming. CPS in the school system. Now we have CPS workers now being streamlined into your school system. It is a partnership, they say, that is that some people say is detrimental to the children. And teachers can already have to do these suspicious reports of child abuse and report it swiftly to CPS. Now you're going to have an aide that's going to be on campus that's going to be able to swiftly deal with the enforcement of that so-called suspicious child. So by installing these CPS workers in school offices, it is inviting a steady stream of on-the-spot inspections without the parent's knowledge. This is removal of due process when an accusation of abuse is arbitrarily levied or, done arbitrarily at a parent. So without your due process, without you being, innocent before proven guilty, you now have the CPS, which is the Child Protection Services, now in each of these local school districts are embracing this. Of course, New York, in those particular areas. And you also have Chicago that has invited them into their school district. And so you have to be very careful of what is going on in the school districts, what is going on within what's happening with your children. They're already there 7-8 hours a day. Now to add a CPS agent that can come in and have your teacher, the teacher says, oh, this child looks like it's been abused, this, that, and the other. They can take that report of suspicious child abuse and give it to the CPS worker, and they can quickly enforce your child being taken away right then and there at school, your child not coming home, and you're looking for your kid, and they've already enacted upon you an enforcement saying that you are a child abuser. Okay, that's a no-go. That's not good, and it is setting up, once again, the system of the beast, and we need to be aware of it, and we need to say no to it, or we need to begin to start taking our kids out, and we need to begin to homeschool as much as we possibly can. It says, people often ask, what do? We are the children, or their children being abused by parents. This is true, and those parents need to be held accountable by their peers. I'm still reading the article from activistpost.com. But the government is currently doing more tragic harm to children who will later be exploited in the criminal justice system, possibly filling cells and coffers to the private corporation prison industry. Given the prison and CPS foster sections are subsidized by you, the parents, you have the right to demand an overhaul. At the very least, demands to leave CPS out of the schools until the act is cleaned up. A demand to stop incentivizing the removal of children from stable homes, demands for third-party unbiased investigations that inspect CPS practices, truly represent the child, and opt for less traumatic solutions, such as allowing a child in question to remain with siblings and stay with a beloved, reputable family member. These are just a few ways to address legitimate problems without running over innocent people and revoking their rights for their children. But you know what? They're not going to do that, because once they have activated this, it's going to happen. So we have to, as a people of the Most High, the chosen people, Yasharala, we have to take even greater action on this and know the signs of the time and be ready to take our children out of these school systems and begin to educate them, just as we did many years ago, educate our kids at home. Okay? I can get this article to you. If you like any of this information, you can email us at M-Y, Elohim, Elohim, MYELOHIM @mail.com. Any of these articles that you'd like for your own personal archives so that you can share with your family, you can email me this. Email to me at that email address, and I will get it out to you. Now, another thing that's happening around our world that people seem to be asleep and not paying attention in the U.S. news and different reports, there are Syrian refugees that are actually living in the U.S. right now. And most people are asleep and don't even know this. But I'm going to give you 8 facts about the U.S. program to resettle Syrian refugees here in the U.S. Some are already here. And according to Bobby Jindal, which is the government, which is one of the Louisiana governors, and other governors, I'll tell you about some other governors that spoke out, but he was very adamant, and it's inside this report from U.S. News. He was one that spoke out and was very adamant about the Syrian refugees. And he basically said that he does not want them in Louisiana. He said he issued an executive order to telling his agencies to do whatever they can to keep them out of the state, and he ordered the state police to track the ones that were already in Louisiana. Okay. The funny part about it is they actually let some of these people in, and they didn't even let people know where they would be living. They just brought them in, and some of them are settled here right now. Now, they say it's supposed to take 18 to 24 months to get the refugees screened in before they're allowed in the state. But if they're already here, that means they bypassed that system. And so they're already in the state. They say refugees are sent to nearly every state and to different communities across the country. Syrian refugees have been sent to 138 cities in 36 states since the state civil war began in 2011. Okay? They've been here since 2011. Nationality of origin is not a factor in determining where people are placed. So you don't know where they are. They don't have to give identification of who they are. This is our government allowing these people to come in, and they are inside of our city. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem is that they had a Facebook tag where they actually had a Syrian guy that was supposedly part of the Hamas, and they said they had a picture with him with this guy's head cut off. He was holding it up on camera, and then right on the side of that, they had him pictured as a refugee. This is what is making it so scary. Because I'm not saying for us, but for the Americans that don't trust in the Most High, that these people are coming because they can't differentiate between the ones that were doing the Hamas action and different killings, Muslim killings, opposed to the ones that are real refugees. Now, this is a punchline here. They say that they're only letting Christian Syrians in. Okay, this is what our government is saying to us. We're only letting the ones that are Christian in. Anybody can write on a sheet of paper that they're Christian. Any of them. They don't, doesn't mean anything to them. It's just a sheet of paper. Oh, I'm Christian. So how can you tell the international criminals that are going around killing people opposed to them being a Christian refugee from Syria? We don't know. But this is what our government is saying. They plan to resettle 10,000 refugees in the United States under this so-called intense scrutiny, since a Syrian passport was found near one of the assailants in the so-called Paris terror attack. We know that was a hoax. But just to let you know, they're not keeping up with these people. They're letting them in, and they're not going through this rigor of a process like they say that takes 14 to 24 months. And so, Yasharallah, be aware of what's happening around you and knowing that this is fulfilling prophecy. Okay, let's go on to the Fukushima incident that's happening within our world. I'm only going to touch these topics that are surrounding the United States because this is our world. There is Dr. Lauren Morat, which is a actual chemist. She has a MA, a PhD in science and radiology expert, and she's been studying the Fukushima project she's an independent scientist that's been studying the Fukushima explosion and the radiation debris that is going into the Pacific. Now, what she's basically saying is there is radiation now has reached the Pacific Islands out there in the Fiji Islands and Hawaii, those different places like that. It is now surfaced into those islands. Now the water has become unstable where they don't want the people living there, and so they're going to have to start moving those people out back on shore or into the states, close into the states, and they can't swim in it. Okay, what does that mean to us here that's closer? The Pacific Island is going to go around into California. Okay, so that's going to cause a problem of the fish that we consume in the Pacific Islands, the salt that we get, any products that are around that region has to do with ocean life, or getting it out of the ocean or surrounding the ocean, or even the land, them growing crops and different things within that land, shipping it to the U.S. We have to be very careful about that type of food that we actually consume, even the salts, the sea salts. So once again, the radiation has made Hawaii and the Pacific Islands unsafe for humans. It's been announced, and they're going to have to start moving those people from those islands closer into the United States. Okay, and so you're going to see that. You're going to see a lot of oceanic fish that are dying. One thing you need to take caution is with salmon. Salmon is very huge in those particular regions, so you want to be very careful with the salmon, because they also say that now that, of course, the fish are dying, they're creating GMO salmon. Okay, they've been feeding the salmon corn. What kind of corn? Monsanto's corn. If you're not familiar with Monsanto's corn, I highly recommend you go online and look up Monsanto so that you can know that they are a GMO corn distributor, and all of their corn is causing all kinds of different problems within the body, the digestive system. Anybody that's eating this stuff is dying over a period of time. So be aware that the Pacific Island is becoming one of those places where it's debris is reaching there and it's uninhabitable to the Hawaiians and people that live in the Pacific Islands. So we have to be very careful of what we're getting from there. And then it's actually a current is circling all the way around to California. Okay, so it's going to start eating away at those regions all along. There's some currents that is driving it all the way into on the sides where California is. So we have to be very, very careful about that as well. So just keep up with that so that you know what should I be doing. You should be monitoring where you're getting your food from. You should be growing your own garden. If you're not doing your own garden, you need to know how to garden. You need to get a garden going ASAP. You also need to be making plans to leave the United States. If you can leave right now, that's good. If you can't, you have to hunker down here until the Most High has a plan for us, then that's fine too, but that's something that should be on your mind. Drinking and trying to keep as much of your water purified as possible, and just be aware that these crises are happening because we're living in the last days, not running in fear. This has nothing to do with being afraid, but it has everything to do with being educated and know what's going on around you and how this is fulfilling prophecy. Remember that the angel sounded, the seal came out, and a third of the water had one third of the waters were destroyed with wormwood. Okay, which is kind of poisonous to people that drink it, and that's in Revelation. So be aware that this could possibly be prophecy, not possibly, but it is one of the ways that prophecy is fulfilling itself. The waters are being poisoned. Of course, the fish are going to die and different things like that. So just be aware. If you know people in the Pacific Islands, along the California coast where the Pacific Ocean runs, make sure that you make them aware of what's happening. Okay, now, another thing I want to talk about is electromagnetic radiation. Okay, electromagnetic radiation, and this is the last topic before I get into our topic tonight. There are, according to statistics, 64%, and I believe it's a little bit higher, of Americans now own a smartphone, up from 58% in 2014. I believe that's a little bit higher than that, but that's just my statistics. I would be only making it up, but I believe we're at 70% or higher. Mobile phones are low-powered radio frequency transmitters operating at frequencies between 450 to 2,700 megahertz with peak powers of from 0.1 to 2 watts. Now, the FCC limit for public exposure from cell phones is 1.6 watts. That means that some of your phones are over the FCC limit for exposure from the radiation that the phone gives off. Now, some laptops emit as much as 150 mgs or more, okay? We have helped test some customers' laptops that was mixing out the meter, and it went up to 100. So some of these laptops or megahertz are going even, way further than what we're supposed to be exposed to, okay? Electromagnetic fields or EMFs don't only come from your computer screen. The EMFs inside your computer generate a powerful EMF signal. Prolonged exposure to higher levels from 2 mgs and above has been associated with cancer and immune system. So you want to make sure that when you're using your laptop, you don't want to be sitting there for a large sum of exposure to it. You're only supposed to be going and getting information, printing up what you need, get on Facebook for an hour or whatever, and limiting your time that you're on these particular computers. It says all appliances working on electricity provide a toxic EMF field, electromagnetic field, approximately 60 hertz. This is over and above potential microwave leakage. Okay, so we got rid of the microwave, now we picked up the cell phone. The design of tablets makes them more dangerous than other types of computers. 2 reasons. You can only connect to the internet via wireless, so your radio frequency, your RF radiation exposure is greater because it's wireless. And their small size and different screens, magnetic fields exposure is guaranteed. So you got the Wi-Fi that's sending waves in, and you also have the other side where it's emitting its own radiation from the device itself. So you're being overloaded with radiation or radio activity from your cell phones or your tablets or your computers. So now we've got to go back to the way it was, and you have to think about it in your head and say, what was I doing before I got a computer or a laptop? What was I doing before I got the cell phone? And begin to regulate how much time that you're spending on these particular devices. So warning comes before destruction. And like I said, if you want any of this information and the articles that I'm pulling from, you can email us at myelohim, that's MYELOHIM @mail.com, and I'll be happy to send you the links to where I actually got this information from. And this is for us. This is for Yasharala. We need to know, once again, what is happening in our world, and we need to know how to prevent it or avoid it. Now, the last thing I want to share with you is a recipe, and I'm going to do it at the end of the call, but this is one of the most powerful antibiotic recipes they say on the earth, this is from one of my sources, that kills infections within minutes in the body. So I'm not going to give it to you now. Hang on to the end of the call, and then I'll give it out for those people that have to leave the call. I'm sorry, but if you can hang it out to the end of the call, I will give you that recipe so that you can have it and have it on hand. But it's supposed to be one of the most powerful antibiotic-type recipes that will kill bacteria in minutes, okay? So I'll get that to you at the end of the call. Now, opening precepts. We're talking about Ahayah's original intent for the woman, or the creation of woman. Last week we left off with Eve tempting being tempted by the serpent, and we talked about, what happened in that situation. We talked about Eve being tempted because of the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. Those are the reasons why Eve was tempted, because she saw that the fruit was good to the eyes and looked like it was pleasing, to make one wise. So she decided to take and eat. Okay, she decided to take and eat. 1 John 2:16, I believe that's where that is found, about the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And so this is what overcomes Chiuwah, not Eve. Her name is Chiuwah. You can find her name in H2331, and it is the life giver. It is the primitive root. She is the first woman. Okay, her name was not Eve. Eve is a Roman or Greco-Roman goddess. And I guess it's pertaining to the earth, or the mother of the earth, but this is not the first woman that brought life to us. Her name is Chiuwah, and she is the life giver. That is what her name means, and her name was given to her by Adam. Okay, so if you want to look that up, you can go into your Strong's Concordance. You can look at H2331, and you can find her name Chiuwah. Now, of course, I'm saying it in the ancient Hebrew tongue. The modern Hebrew would have two V's there, Hava or Havawah. I don't deal with the vowels, and I don't deal with the stuff that's outside of the original tongue of Hebrew. There are no V's in our language, and there are no U's or any O's in as far as vowels. We have A's, and we do have one that kind of acts as a long E sound, and we have a Ya, which is a Yode, but we do not have those other sounds, so I don't even entertain the V. So if you look at her name is Chiuwah, okay? And so Adam was created. I'm going to read from Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. This is just me going over a few scriptures. But we did talk about Eve and her fall. So if you missed that call, you want to request the video or the audio from last week's call so you can catch up with where we are right now. But I'll read Genesis 1:27 and 28, and it says, "And Elohim created the man in his image, and in the image of Elohim he created him, male and female." We are created in the image of the Most High, and he created them. Okay? And Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said to them, "Bear fruit and increase." And I'm reading from the Scriptures version. "Bear fruit and increase, and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over all the creatures moving on the earth." Okay? So what it basically was saying, be fruitful and multiply. He's talking to Adam and Chiuwah as well. Okay? Now let's go to Genesis 2:18. Genesis 2:18. And he said, and this is kind of what we started with the very first lesson. It says, 2:18 says, "And Elohim said, it is not good that Adam, man, should be alone. I will make a helpmeet for him." Okay, this is where we began the lesson. Genesis 2:20, And Adam gave names to all the cattle and to the fowl of the air and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helpmeet for him. So we were originally created, of course, in the image of Elohim, because he created he created the image of both male and female. We were both created in his image. But we were taken out of the rib of Adam, and he created a woman, okay? And her name was Chiuwah. And she was created to be Adam's helpmeet. Now, I did go over this the first lesson, but I'll go over this again. The word help from the Strong's Concordance, H528, H528 is azor, okay? It means to aid. It comes from the primitive root of H5826. Comes from the primitive root. It comes the original verb root from H5826, which it says the same. It says azar, to support, that is to protect, aid, and help. So we were becoming a aid to him, a helpmeet to him. If you look at it in the lexicon of Brown, Drives, and Briggs, azar means to help, to succor, to support. The word is related also to Ghana, which I said Ghana is a Hebrew word, and Ghana means to defend, cover, or surround. So it's related to the word Ghana, okay? It means to defend, to cover, surround. It's a primitive root, to hedge about, that is generally to protect or defend. So we were there to help Adam guard the garden, to defend it, and we're also helped to support him and to aid him. Okay, that was the original intent. What does the word, we already read the word help, literally means to assist, to lend strength. I'm reading from the Webster's 1826 dictionary. The word help means to aid, to assist, to lend strength, or means towards effecting a purpose, as to help a man in his work. You can also look up the word succor. You can look up the word support, means to bear, to sustain, to uphold. And let's look at the word mate real quickly. We were a helpmate. So we know we came to be an aid, to help and protect and cover, defend and surround. And now we're looking up the word mate, which is in the Strong's Concordance H5048, which is nagad. Nagad means a front that is part opposite, specifically counterpart or mate. It is the part that is opposite of the other, specifically a counterpart. It comes from the primitive root of H5046 in your Strong's Concordance, H5046, which is properly to a front that is to stand out boldly opposite, okay? So if you're going to be a helpmate, you're going to stand out boldly opposite of your mate. You're not going to look like your mate because you're not formed like your mate. You come to help them as the counterpart, okay? So even these definitions of what the Most High, how he called different things in the Hebrew, lets you know that the gay marriage and this homosexual movement is not of him, because he specifically gave helpmate. He gave a helpmate that was the very opposite, that stood out boldly opposite of Adam, which was Chiuwah. Okay. Also, the word nagad in the Brown, Diggs, and Briggs lexicon, which is basically the origin of a lot of these words, where they come from in the Hebrew tongue. Nagad means to be, to make known, to declare, to proclaim, and it comes from the root word H129, which is barak, a primitive root to kneel, to be a blessing, and vice versa. Ahayah being a blessing to man, man being a blessing to him. Sending up is a benefit, is a vice versa benefit. He blesses us and we bless him with our lips. So literally we were put here to be a blessing to the man, a companion and a blessing. Okay. Blessing also means to make happy, to make successful, to prosper. Okay. We're here to help the man be prosperous. We're here to be a blessing to the man and vice versa. Okay. So it's a two-way street. All right, so now that we understand what a helpmeet is for, both for the male and the female, but specifically because we're talking tonight about women, we're talking about the intent of woman. The original intent of the woman was to come and to be a helpmate, to be right on the side of the man, side by side. Now, we know what happened in the garden. What happened in the garden when Chiuwah, which was the first one to sin against the first commandment that the Most High gave to them, she was cursed with childbirth, and of course the man was cursed to work the field. The ground was cursed, the serpent was cursed, But I want to go back to Genesis 1:28, and it says, "And Ahayah blessed them, and Ahayah said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." So what I want to do is I want to go to this particular verse, because last week we talked about what happened with Eve and the serpent and what happened with the curse and everything. But this week we're going to talk about this particular verse, which was another command that the Most High told them, to be fruitful and to multiply and replenish the earth. Okay. Now this was something that both of us this was the command for both the male and the female that we were supposed to do, replenish the earth. Okay. Now what I want to do is bring you to the book of Yasher. If you have your book of Yasher, I want to bring you to the book of Yasher, because I want to show you how we began to break this commandment of being fruitful and multiply. After we were cursed and put out of the garden, both Adam and Chiuwah, and like I said, Chiuwah was cursed, Chiuwah was cursed, Adam was cursed, the serpent was cursed, the ground was cursed. But after we were cursed, go back to that commandment. He gave us, don't touch the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, don't eat from it. And he also told us he also commanded us to be fruitful and multiply. Okay, let's talk about being fruitful and multiply, because we hit on the not touching the tree of knowledge of good and evil last week. So we're going to talk about being fruitful and multiply. Okay, the book of Yasher is mentioned in Joshua chapter 10. When actually the sun stood still, and I'll read it to you, Joshua 10:13. This is a book of history of the Old Testament, the things that happened in the things that happened between I want to say Moses' time with the beginning of Creation Ahayah, all the way into the end of Samuel in 1st and 2nd Samuel, and the wars of what happened during the time of our people. So Joshua 10:13, and the sun stood still and the moon stayed until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is it not written in the book of, they call it Jasher, but that word is actually Yasher. So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven and hastened not to go down about a whole day. So that's the first mention of Yasher or Jasher. And the second reference to Yasher or Jasher is in 2 Samuel 1:18. 2 Samuel 1:18. It says, also he bade them teach the children of Yoda or Yehoda the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of what? Jasher or Yasher. So that's your two references to let you know that this is a legitimate book of the Hebrews. Now let's go on. I want to read from the book of Yasher, because I want to hit on this be fruitful and multiply command. In the book of Yasher, chapter 2, verse 19, it says, in those days, the sons of men began to trespass against Elohim. Now, this is going to tie right into the book of Enoch, because I'm going to go from the book of Enoch also. So if you have your book of Enoch, you want to have that pulled, you want to open that book up too. But right now, let's just read Yasher. Yasher chapter 2:19. For in those days the Son of Men began to trespass against Elohim, and to transgress, which means sin against the commandments which he had commanded to Adam, to be fruitful and multiply in the earth. Okay, now do you see where this being fruitful and multiply is very important? Okay, because he commanded us to do so. Now I'm going to read second chapter of Yasher, verse 20. And some of the sons of men caused their wives to drink a draught, it's a potion basically, that would render them barren, in order that they might retain their figures, and whereby their beautiful appearances might not fade. Sound familiar? Does this sound familiar as to what's going on in our world today with abortion or the pill, the pill, the next day pill? Or does it sound familiar with them giving our girls birth control pills, right at 12 or 13, trying to get them on birth control pills so early that their bodies get so messed up that they're not able to bear kids? I've got friends of mine that begin to take birth control pills real young, and they can't have kids. I've even got girlfriends of mine that have the stent thing put in their arm, and so that they don't, it's a birth control type thing, like thing that's in their arm that I guess, shoots in the medication because they have to get it done or whatever. They have to get it re-put in every so often, but it keeps them from having children. But they're disobeying the commandment of the Most High. Now, we know that you should be married and having these kids because that gets rid of all of the other things that the enemy tries to bring in, shame and all that for having a child out of wedlock. But for the most part, we are supposed to be fruitful and multiply. But the men had been given the information about making this concoction so that they could have their wives drink this concoction or this basically potion or spell so that they can become barren and they won't have children so that they can keep their beautiful appearance and their shape. I'll read verse 21. And when the sons of men called some of their wives to drink, Zillah drank with them. And she was actually she was Lamech's wife, Zillah. And the childbearing women appeared abominable in the sight of their husbands, as widows whilst their husbands live, for the barren ones only they were attached. So if you were a childbearing woman at that time, you would appear abominable during this time to other women because they were drinking this drought, and the men's hearts were more toward the women that could not have children. That sounds familiar in our society today. That's why you see a lot of our men, they go for the chick that's got the perfect body, so they say perfect 10 or whatever. And, the other lady that may have had 1 or 2 kids, or even the baby's mama that they left behind, they don't want anything to do with it. This is what's happening in our society. You got the women that's trying to make sure they keep up with the Kardashians that's going to get the breast implants and butt injections or just getting their face cut out and doing all these things to make them look beautiful to the men that they're trying to attract. And I'm bringing this up because you're going to see in the book of Enoch how all this stuff came to be. Okay, how did this stuff started happening? Where did the teaching and the knowledge of this type of stuff come? Where did it come from? I mean, it's not like it was part of what the Most High, Ahayah, taught us. So where did this knowledge of good and evil stuff come from? Okay, so I'm just trying to show you. And I'll read that again. And the sons of men caused some of their wives to drink with them, and the childbearing women, and I guess the men were sterile too, because they were drinking it as well, and the childbearing women appeared abominable, hated, despicable in the sight of their husbands. So the husbands only went for the ones that were barren. That's the ones they were attached to. Okay, let's go down to the book of Enoch. Where did this mentality come from? How did the earth learn this information? Well, now we're going to go to the book of Enoch. Okay, Enoch is mentioned in Genesis chapter 5, 18 to 24. It tells you his origin and what happened to Enoch. And also Jude mentions Enoch, Jude 1 and 14, and Enoch also the seventh from Adam prophesied of these things, saying, Behold, Ahayah cometh with 10,000 of his saints. So we're basically reading a book of prophecy here from our brother Enoch. Okay, what I particularly want to hit on is the rebels amongst the watchers. Okay, now if you read in Genesis, I think you'll read about the Nephilim and how they begin to lay with the daughters of man. And this is what we're talking about right now. We're talking about what happened with these watchers. What happened to get this abominable act to take place, right? Who brought this information into the world? Okay, I will read to you Genesis 6 and 1 about the watchers and who they are. It's Genesis 6 and 1 really quickly so I can refer back to these watchers and who they are. Genesis 6 and 1, it says, And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. Verse number 2. And when the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and we're talking about the sons of Elohim, we're talking about the angels, okay? And they took them wives of all which they chose. Verse 3. And Ahayah said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Verse 6. And there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of Ahayah came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men, which are men of old, men of renown. So this is what started this. The angels came, and they began to lay with human flesh, and they began to create these huge creatures that are called giants, and sometimes you hear them called Nephilim, which is the Hebrew word for them. But that came from Genesis chapter 6, starting with verse 1, and I read all the way down to verse 5. Verse 4. Okay? And let me read verse 5. And Ahayah saw that the wickedness of man was great. You need to hear that too. The wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thought of his heart was only evil continually. Only evil. Everything that man thought about during this time period, which is before the flood, was evil. Okay? So now we can get back to Enoch to find out what happened with these watchers that made this place so evil. Okay? Number one, they went against the commandment of the Most High because they were already immortal beings. Okay? They were already in heaven. So once they lay with the women, that went against what the Most High, what they were supposed to do, the command of the Most High. So they were already judged from doing this, laying with man. Okay? Because they were higher beings. But chapter 6 of Enoch, verse 1 says, and it came to pass when the sons of men, and this is the same thing, so it reads kind of like Genesis, increased in those days, there were born to them fair and beautiful daughters. And the angels, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the children of men, and let us beget for ourselves children. Now, understand the timeline here. What I read in Yasher comes slightly after this happens with the sons of men and sons of Ahayah and the daughters of men. Okay, it comes after that, after this particular instance. Verse 6, and Semyaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear that you may not wish this deed to be done, and that I alone will pay for this great sin. See, they knew that they were sinning. They knew it was a great sin, a sin unto death. And they all answered him and said, let us all swear an oath and bind one another with curses, so not to alter this plan, but to carry out this plan effectively. So they all of the angels that were supposed to be watching the humans, they came into an oath and said, okay, we're gonna take this, we're gonna do it all together. So if anything happens, we're all gonna be punished. Then as they swore together, all bound one another with curses to it. Okay. So on top of that, they put some curses on that swearing in they did to come into the daughters of Eve. Okay, and daughters of Adam. Chiuwah, Adam and Chiuwah. And they were in all 200, and they came down on Ortis, which is the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called the Mount Hermon, or Hermon, because on it they swore and bound one another with curses. Okay? Now, I don't know if you see when movies come on, they have, I think it's maybe Century 21, where they have the mountain, and then you see all those stars that surround it coming out. You'll see the mountain, and you'll see a bunch of stars coming around the mountain. Well, that mountain in that intro video is actually Mount Hermon, and those stars that are coming around it are the fallen angels. So when you're watching that particular production company, of course, all of them are corrupt, but mainly that one, you're actually they're letting you know that these are the ones that produce this film. Okay, these fallen angels. Just on the side, FYI. And then chapter 7. And they took wives for themselves, I'm on Enoch chapter 7, wives for themselves, and everyone chose for himself one each. And they began to go into them, lie with them, and were promiscuous with them. And they taught them. Now, this is what they taught them. And they taught the daughters of Chiuwah, they taught them charms and spells. They showed them the cutting of roots and trees. And they became pregnant and bore giants. And their height was 3,000 cubits. I'll get into a little bit of this. Witchcraft, fallen angel technology, charms and spells, and the cutting of roots and trees. Okay? cutting the roots and trees for the purpose of making the portion that you'll find out that the women were drinking, so that they can become pretty much sterile, if you can say that for a woman, or barren. Okay. These devoured all the toil of men until men were unable to sustain themselves. They were so big, these giants were so big and so huge, that it doesn't matter how much crops or whatever that regular men grew for them, they began to devour. They became unable to sustain them. And the giants, chapter 7, verse 4, and the giants turned against them in order to devour the men. So they began to eat the men that were feeding them, people, us. The giants began to eat regular human people. And they began to sin against the birds, the animals, against reptiles, against fish, and they devoured one another's flesh. They began to eat each other and drank the blood from it. Now, you know that's a command against us as Yasharal. We're not supposed to drink any blood, eat any flesh, right? It's of each other. And all these, anything that's not clean or a clean animal we cannot eat. But they begin to devour themselves. Now look at they begin to sin against the birds and against the animals. They begin to mix their DNA, which they're doing right now, with the birds, and with a sin against the animals, against the reptiles, and against the fish. Okay, people thought that back in that time that the Most High created dinosaurs. Those were created by the Nephilim spirits. They were not created by the Most High. It said, and the earth complained about the lawless one. Okay, but let's not stop here. Let's go to chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make swords and daggers and shields and breastplate. At that time, we didn't even know about the weapons, these different types of metal weapons, but they taught men how to do that. And he showed them the things after these and the art of making them. Now listen to this: bracelets and ornaments, and the art of making up the eyes, and of beautifying the eyelids, and the most precious stones and all kinds of colored dyes. And the world was changed. So we wonder where we get a lot of these different things that we see on the earth today. It was because the fallen angels came into the daughters of Adam, and they made with us and began to teach us this fallen angel technology. And I know that you probably remember the story of Jezebel, right? When Jezebel, when she made up her face, she was putting on her war paint, because they taught us the angels taught us how to put this paint to make the eyelids beautiful. Of course, they wouldn't talk about the men, but nowadays the men want to look like women. So that's another fallen angel trick and spell. But they put the making up of the eyes, the beautifying of the eyelids. I'm almost certain it's the mascara and the eyeliner under the eyes, and then arching the eyebrows with the makeup and different things like that. Because when you know women, when you see other women that do not have, one day they'll have makeup on, and then the special person has been wearing it for a long time, and they come in one day without their makeup, like, girl, what happened to you? It's like they're putting on a mask, like they're totally a different person. And if you've ever seen a person that's never wore makeup, go to one of these glamour studios and they make them up, you'll see them and you'll say, man, she looks like a totally different person, because she is. Because she's the same person physically, but spiritually she's changed, because she's used this fallen angel technology. And now you see the women wearing such heavy makeup to where they look like witches. I mean, they have the lashes. Sometimes the fake lashes that they put on are like 2 inches long, 1 to 2 inches long. Then they arch their eyebrows to really look evil. Some of them look very evil. They wear black underneath their eyelashes and black on top. A lot of this goth makeup is showing you how they would use this as a way to battle, as a way to beautify and to entice the men. Ornaments and bracelets. There's a lot of things that go on in the witch world concerning charms that they wear on bracelets. It means different things, different types of metal, types of bracelets that they use I know one thing. I was listening to a lady that was an expert. She was saying they use a lot of copper because copper contains power, different types of power. And this is the different things that these fallen angels taught our women to do, so that they could look up, so that when the Most High looked down upon them, they were nothing of what He created. They were totally different. It says, and there was great impiety, chapter 8, verse 2. There was great impiety and much fornication. That means nobody was living righteous. Nobody was living set apart at that time. And much fornication, and they went astray, and all their ways became corrupt. All their ways became corrupt on the earth. So now you're trying to figure out what happened in that time. How did we come about finding out how to get this root to disobey the command to be fruitful and multiply? How did we get it? We got it from the fallen angels. But we got a lot more than that. We got the different coloring of the eyes and the makeup and charms, how to cast spells. I remember back when I was a kid, I would hear some of the ladies. I had some Caucasian friends. Well, I was a teenager then, yeah, and they was like, oh, our priest doesn't mind us doing white magic. And I was like, where is that written in Scripture? Black magic we can't do that, but, there's nothing wrong with white magic. This is what the Catholic Church endorses, because they all went to Catholic Church all their lives. They went to catechism, which was a Catholic school. Like we go to Bible study on Wednesday nights, they would go to catechism on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever, and they were teaching this to the kids. There's nothing wrong with a white lie. All these gray areas that they're teaching on the earth today is fallen angel technology. Okay? Go to chapter 8, verse 3. And Amazarach taught all those who cast spells and root cuttings. Okay, that was the fallen angel that did that. And then Amaros, the release of spells. So they cast a spell, and Amaros taught them how to get rid of the spell. And then Baraquiel taught them astrology, astrologers. And Kokabel told them about the portals of where, the angels come in and out. He showed them where some of those portals were. And Tamiel, along with Baraquiel, taught astrology, And Azrael taught the path of the moon, following the moon's pattern and different things like that. And at the destruction of men, they cried out, and their voices reached to the heavens. Now, if you keep on reading, which I'm not going to do tonight, if you keep reading, you will find that they're specifically begin to break down astrology and different things the fallen angel taught them. If you keep reading in Enoch, and I think it goes on into like 10, 11, and 12, you'll begin to see the other things that the fallen angels did. And then you'll begin to see Enoch being called to the fallen angels because they wanted him to go before the Most High on their behalf to basically get a pardon for the sin that they created on the earth. That's what Enoch, he was the advisor between the angels, the messengers, the fallen angels on the earth, and he was sent to heaven to talk to the Most High with Gabriel and Uriel and Michael. So it's very, very interesting how we see these things that have happened in the earth, and we see the abortion, and we see the lasciviousness of our people, fornication, promiscuism. We see, the way that they dress sensually, the way that they color their eyes and make themselves beautiful. A lot of them are wearing this weave so they can look like the Caucasian race, because they're not satisfied with the hair that they were given. And now there are a lot of these people that have had these perms over a period of time. They're getting cancers and different things like that. It's not worth straightening your hair. If you weren't born with it, don't worry about it. They're starting to get chemical burns and processes even underneath the scalp. And now with the weave, I read an article and I saw a video that they were actually They actually were taking the weave off of the dead women that would give hair. Well, the women that would give hair in India must have not been producing fast enough for them. So they began to cut the hair off of the dead women. Okay. Now, the Most High created those little bitty bugs because from dust you came and dust you're going to return. So you're going to be eaten up and deteriorate to go into the earth. Okay. And you're supposed to be in the earth, not in a casket. You're supposed to be buried in the ground. Okay. Because how can you deteriorate if you're in this steel bolted casket that's sealed and hypoallergenic and and waterproof, all the stuff they try to sell you. But anyways, so they cut the women's hair off, the dead women, and they begin to sell it to our women because, come on, the tribe of Yoda, the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe of Lewi or Levi, we're the darker tribes, and we're the ones that's getting the most of the weave for our hair, and they know this. So the bugs that are already in the dead person's hair, because remember I said once you die, they begin to, the little bugs that they've been to eat you. And when the women would begin to put this weave in their hair, the bugs were actually going under the skin and causing brain damage, where they'll cause scalp damage first, and they were going and starting to go into the cranial area to cause brain damage. Okay, scalp disease, internal brain disease. Okay, and this is what's happening with our women that are wearing this weave. But the Most High is telling them to get away from that stuff. You weren't born with that. You don't need that. Stay away from. Another thing that our women from the tribe of Yasharal is not just Judah, the tribe of Judah and Benjamin and Lewi, but this is a lot of our tribes here in the United States. They teach this Western medicine, and a lot of them are not content with the bodies that the Most High gave. So they'll go get breast implants and butt implants. And now that they're finding that, of course, we always know it was unsafe to put silicone or even the so-called water material in a little small plastic pouch and put it underneath the muscle of a woman's breast tissue or butt tissue. But saline solution, or you can get the silicone, but the silicone was most popular because it was firmer. But they put this in there, and now the actual bag itself is bursting, and it's causing death, or it's causing cancer, or it's causing high levels of sickness in a lot of these women that have went and put these implants that should not go into the body in. And so they're being punished for that. Okay? Because there is a higher created you, and he created you beautiful. He looked on the woman as well as the man, and he saw that was a good thing. And then he said, be fruitful and multiply. Okay? There's nothing wrong with working out. There's nothing wrong with eating healthy. There's nothing wrong with maintaining your body. But when you begin to change through surgical procedure, now I'll say this, if it's a life and death situation concerning the breast to get reconstructed, that's every woman's choice. I have a mother-in-law. She decided to go without getting breast implants. She wears a prosthesis. That's a choice. Okay? If you're a woman and, you're having issues with your stomach and the doctor's telling you that you have to have this surgery done and it's a medical emergency and it's not one of those that are just for look's sake, then that's a different story. Okay? But just altering your body just because you want to look different or be different, or you want to look good for someone on the outside, instead of being pleased with the Most High gave and being content, that is against the law of the Most High. Okay, now, Yvette, are you telling me I can't wear my colored eye dyes and I can't wear my jewelry ornaments and I can't wear my precious stones and all that? Look, I leave all that stuff up to you. My job is to give you the information on where it came from. I can't tell you what to do because you bear the same spirit of Ahayah, the Ruach Kodesh, as I do. You pray to the Most High, you hear from the Most High. So you should know that when you get this information, you should be the decipher of the information as to what the Most High is saying to you. Some people will be sensitive to this and they'll say, you know what, I'm just done. I'm done with it. And some people will say, well, I'm good. I'm not, wearing, all this stuff for these people, whatever you're convicted by. But just know, well, and another thing with the cell phones, just know it's fallen angel technology, Just know it's fallen angel technology. And the scripture tells you came in this world naked and you're going to leave here naked. You came in this world with what he gave you, and you're going to leave this world with what he gave you. And when he calls us out of the ground for those that are dead in Christ, he's going to call us up, with what we have, who we are, how he created us. We're going to get glorified bodies, but those people that are not satisfied with their bodies, and they may not make it in. They may not make it in because the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the pride of life causes people to want to covet, to want something that someone else has. That's why they're pushing these stars, Kim Kardashians, and I don't know who these people are. I don't even know, Beyonce and whatever, because I don't even watch any of this stuff. I get it all from Facebook, but they're watching all these people with these so-called bodies that they want, and then they go out because they covet these bodies, our women, and they go out and get these bodies. They see this beautiful makeup or whatever on this woman, it makes her look good, and she may look sensual or whatever. Oh, I want that style. They may see a hairstyle. They know they don't have the hair to do it. I'm just going to buy me some because I want to look like her, wigs and all of that, faking the poor men out. You got a wig on, you got butt pads, breast pads, colored up eyes. By the time they get you home and marry you and during the wedding night, you got to take all this stuff off. And they were like, wait a minute, I didn't pay for that, And the men have their faults as well. I'm not talking to the men tonight. I'm talking to our women to be content with who we are, to be content with how created us, because you are beautiful. He saw you and said you were perfect in his eyes. If you got to exercise, exercise. Everybody wants to keep their body healthy and strong, especially in this time when we're in tribulation. We don't know when we got to put our Nikes on and take off. We don't know when the Most High says, okay, it's time for you to leave, when you got to grab your bug out bag and get it. So yes, you should be in shape. You should be working out. You should be strengthening your body as well as your spiritual body through the word of the Most High. But at the same time, we as daughters of Yahadim, okay, or Yasharallah, we should be on the lookout for the word, consistently refining ourselves, consistently questioning traditions of man that we have picked up, doctrines of devils that we have picked up unknowingly. And when we see these things, because we love Ahayah, we get away from them. We turn it aside. We get rid of it completely. We Chiuwah. We turn away from the sin and we don't pick it up anymore. So that's why I say you have to look at this thing and you have to judge it based on what you believe, based on what you see the Most High is saying to you. But what I'm saying to you tonight, daughters of Yasharallah, women of Yasharallah, that he is coming back for a church. Not so much a church. I really don't like that word because, like I said, the word church is not Hebraic. It's not Hebrew. It's really, the word church is a Grecian word, a Greek word. It should be assembly or it should be messianic. But because we are of the Messiah, okay? But he's coming back for assembly without a spot or wrinkle, okay? That means he's coming back for an assembly that is obeying the law, statutes, and commandments. And he's coming back for those that have the witness of Yeshua in them. You have to have them both. You have to have the law, statutes, and commandments, obeying them, and you have to have the witness of Yeshua in you, which means you have to have accepted him as your master, your savior, your king. So we must do all we can to go back to the original. See, what this does is alleviates us from keeping up with the Joneses. It alleviates us from worrying about what somebody else has. And what it does is it centers us back into what the Most High wants from us. And he wants us, if you go look in the book of Ecclesiastes, if I can pull it up without my computer failing on me. If you go to the very last book, I'll pull it up for you ladies, of Ecclesiastes, and this is the wisdom of Shalom. Some people say Solomon, Shalom. You'll find in chapter 12, I want to say it's 14. Let me make sure. Yeah, 13 and 14. So we're in Ecclesiastes, not Ecclesiasticus, but Ecclesiastes in the original. Well, all of those books are original, but in the Old Testament, Ecclesiastes, not Sirach, but Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13. It says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For Elohim shall bring every work into judgment, and every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." That is the duty of man. Let me read it out of the Scriptures Bible. Okay, the Scriptures Bible is basically one of the translations that was put out in 1993 from the Scriptures Institute, which operates out in Ethiopia. And what they did is they came up with the closest translation from the direct Hebrew, both from the Hebrew from the Ginsburg Hebrew Bible of the New Covenant, some people call it the New Testament, I call it the New Covenant, as well as the Hebrew from the Old Covenant or the Old Testament, and all of it was in Hebrew, and then they translated it back into English. Okay, so it's a very close translation straight from Hebrew and some Greek and some Aramaic into our language, which is English that we read today. So from the Scriptures Bible, the 1998 revision, it says in Ecclesiastes 12 and 13, "Let us hear the conclusion of the entire matter," everything that has to do with the earth and the world and who we are within it. Us as Yasharallah, that is. "Fear Elohim and guard his commandments, for this applies to all mankind." Verse 14, "For Elohim shall bring every work into right ruling, including all that is hidden, whether good or evil." This is the conclusion of the matter. And I'm going to end the call with that particular verse tonight because I believe it's such a fitting verse after we read what the fallen angels taught man and how we were able to gather that information, how this information and technology entered the world. It entered the world through our mother, Chiuwah. And if I said Eve, I'm sorry. I try to take that name out of practicing every day. Our mother, Chiuwah, when she disobeyed, and our father, Adam, when he disobeyed, and they ate the fruit of the knowledge of the tree of knowledge, ate the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then they allowed that knowledge of good and evil to enter the world. And that evil was taught to us by the fallen angels. And so now that we know that where a lot of this technology comes from, it's up to us to hear the conclusion of the matter, to fear Elohim and to guard his commands, for this applies to all mankind. For Elohim shall bring every work into right ruling, including all that is hidden, whether good or whether evil. So, ladies, I just want to thank you tonight for being on the call, and thank you for your time in participating with us tonight. I hope I didn't keep you too long, but I want to make sure that you get everything you need. And again, our email address is myelohim, MYELOHIM @mail.com for those of you that want the news from the ladies group, the news information that I gave earlier today. And then also for those ladies that would like to send a prayer request, or you have news update information that you want to share with the group, please send it to that email address that is myelohim @mail.com, and we'll be happy to pray for you and your family members. Please share this number with other women so that we can get the message out to Yasharallah and the information that we all need, everyday living, everyday learning. Now, as promised, I said that I would give you the recipe for the, they call it the most powerful antibiotic on the earth.
I don't know what is wrong with the righteous laws of the Father. Could it be that we are disobedient when we chuck it all to grace?